Hey there, Rebels. Thanks for tuning into the Rebel Lane podcast. My name is Kevin Kukar. I am your host. If this is your first time joining us, and it might be because it's our third episode ever, and you like the content, please make sure that you subscribe, click a link, or search us out. We are on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Back of buses. You might notice that we are on location for the first time ever. We are at the Blackwell Barn and Lodge in Gambrills, Maryland, talking to restaurateur and CEO James King of Titan Hospitality about how restaurants are innovating and changing in the face of COVID-19. James, thanks again for doing this. We appreciate it. As I do, I think, with everybody that we sit and talk with, we start with background. So I'd love to hear a little bit about where you're from, how you got into your industry.
Yeah, so I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I had a close family friend whose father owned 7 restaurants in Georgetown, Midtown, and downtown Washington. And it really started as a summer job. I was looking for a summer job and started washing dishes and bussing tables. And every summer I kind of elevated and did another job, built a very strong relationship with him, and was somewhat of a mentor to me in watching how he operated so many different businesses, and really kind of found a passion for the restaurant industry, whether it was being able to talk to so many different people from so many walks of life in Washington. It's not just locals, it's such an international city. And so I just loved it and continued to work my way into management. And I guess I got to a point where I was working 18 hours a day for someone else and said, if I'm going to put this type of work in, I want it to be for me. And so I was very fortunate. I hired a restaurant broker, and I would have loved to open a restaurant in Washington, but I just couldn't afford the rents at that time. I was 26 years old. And so I looked everywhere from as far south as Richmond, Virginia, and as far north as New Jersey. And I found a place in Gambrills, Maryland that I fell in love with. And kind of begged, borrowed, and stole, and sold my house and cashed my savings in and bought my first restaurant at 26 years old and lived there 18 hours a day for the first 5 years, and have been very fortunate to be able to grow from there. So that's kind of how it all started.
How does it feel when you take that kind of risk on, where you're like, I'm going to do this at 26 years old? What does that feel like?
You know, it's scary. But I also there was a piece of me that said, if I fail, I'm only 26. So I don't think I would take that risk today. I think being young and having a long time ahead of me, I was more willing to dive in head first and roll the dice and see what happens. But no doubt it was risky and scary at the same time. And everything that I thought I knew, I deliberately spent my time working my way through the restaurant business to gain the knowledge to run one, but very different from being a manager than owning one. And so everything I thought I knew, I kind of knew. And then I learned a lot as an owner, and I made a lot of mistakes in the first 5 years. And I think that's what's made me a good operator is really time and experience. And you have to fall down, and you have to mess up, and you have to make bad decisions to eventually get to the good decisions. And like to think now I make more good decisions than bad decisions, but certainly at that time it was probably the other way around, and learned a tremendous amount. But it was definitely scary, and I think what the most probably daunting thing that I thought about every day was not only my life, my success, my future, my house, but all of a sudden there were 65 people who depended on me to make the right decisions, which had a direct impact on them and their lives and financial stability. That was probably the most daunting thing, when all that pressure falls on you, and as you're making these decisions, you're thinking, how is this going to affect everyone else? And so that was scary.
What do you do with that? I can imagine that's a lot of pressure.
You do the best you can to make the right decisions. There's always a conflict, however, between often what's best for the business and what's best for the employees. Sometimes they don't see the larger picture, they don't see the big vision, and so another lesson I think I've learned is to try to explain that to them. It's to not just make decisions and say, trust me, but to say, here's why we're going to do it this way. And by doing that, you get them to buy in, and most of the time. And you hope that they understand and that they have the faith and belief in you that the decisions that you are making are truly best for the business. And you got to separate the two. The employees and the business, sometimes they are the same thing, and sometimes they're not the same thing. And so sometimes policies have to be made that they don't like, but it's better for the consumer, which then grows the business, which then puts money in their pockets. So it's kind of a roundabout way to help them, but they don't see it immediately.
Very cool. You talked about coming up in the restaurant industry and doing, busboy, dishwasher, all the way up.
Yeah.
Which I have it has to be, one, a really different and cool kind of education, but two, it also has to be kind of exhausting. Like that is the food and beverage industry, and I guess I'm speaking from experience of being in it, is a really big lift. It's a long hours, a lot of what was that like growing up inside of that and then making it your forever career?
Yeah, it is. It's physically demanding. It's a very physically demanding industry. You're on your feet all day long. It's manual labor. It's usually hot where you're working. And then on top of that, you're often you're dealing with the general public, which is never easy to deal with. And there's some great people and there's some not so great people, but combining the two, it was a lot like politics. And I spent some time in politics where you're constantly dealing with people, someone's constantly upset, and someone constantly wants something from you. And you've got to juggle all that. I thrived in that environment, and to me, if I didn't go home exhausted, then I didn't really work hard. And there's a part of you that's a self-worth, that when you fall into bed at night and you fall asleep because you don't have any other choice because you're exhausted. To me, I always enjoyed that feeling. I felt like I worked hard, I earned my money, I made a difference. But it is definitely different, and I think it's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, the physical demands of restaurant employees and the toll that it takes and the number of hours. The average restaurant employee, they see their work family more than their real family. And depending on what you do in the industry, you may work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And that takes a toll on your family. It takes a toll on your finances. It takes a toll on your kind of emotional well-being. And so we work really hard on communicating with our employees and talking to them and making sure that they're in a good place because, it can be tough. It's a very tough industry.
So it sounds like if you're willing to go through that and then decide that you want to become a proprietor or a restaurateur and open a hospitality group, obviously it's a calling. There's a reason that you're in it.
You better love it, because if you don't, and there's days I don't, trust me, but it'll grind you up if you don't. There's so many moving pieces. It's hard to make money. The restaurant industry is known for being one of the hardest industries out there. 9 out of 10 restaurants close in the first 3 years. So that's a statistic unlike any other industry. And it takes resilience, endurance, so you got to love it. Like anything else you do in life, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to excel at it. I think one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs or restaurateurs make is they look at it from their experience, which is I go in, I eat a great meal, I have a nice bottle of wine, I sign a check, and I go home. What a great, easy business this is. And so they try it. And then they quickly realize that there's so many moving pieces in inventory and payroll and hiring and customer service and decor and furniture and lighting. And they're like, what did I get myself into? And so I think, there's two things, obviously being passionate, but also the experience like anything else. I think those who succeed and excel at this industry are ones that truly have been through it and worked their way up the ranks and understand when you walk in what that dishwasher's going through because you've done it, and to be compassionate and understanding of what these guys are going through and to make policies and decisions that help them and make their lives easier, which helps you retain staff, improve your culture and your morale. And those are all things I think in our industry sometimes get forgotten. I think Silicon Valley and the tech world does a really good job of focusing on that and having daycare centers for their employees and coffee breaks and lunchrooms. In our industry, it's just to get in there and grind it out. And if you forget about the human side of it and what all these people are doing every day, you'll constantly churn staff. And so one of the biggest things I think to make a restaurant successful is employee retention. If you have the same people every day that care, that get to know your customers, that get to know the employees, you're going to be more successful. And the turnover rate in this industry is incredible. And so everything you can do to chip away at that and keep longevity makes you stronger. And I think we do a pretty good job of that.
Nice. So you mentioned 9 out of 10 restaurants close in their first 3 years. We talked about how grueling and how many hours it can be and what it can take out of you. And yet you're still opening new concepts. You've got some of the coolest restaurants I've seen, certainly in our region, in the Mid-Atlantic region. So tell us about the restaurants. Tell us about what you've got open and what you've got going on.
So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Titan Hospitality Group. We are a restaurant group located here in the Mid-Atlantic region. We're based out of Crofton, Maryland. Our corporate offices are here. And we own several brands through several states, including fine dining all the way down to fast food. And so our fast food, and we have Roy Rogers. We're a franchisee for Roy Rogers. And we have one in Gambrels. And then we have a brand called Blackwall Hitch, which was founded about 8 years ago in downtown Annapolis, was our first location. We then expanded to Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia, on the waterfront there. And then where we're sitting today is kind of our rustic version of that, which is called the Blackwall Barn and Lodge. Our Blackwall Hitch is more nautical, waterfront, downtown locations. The Blackwall Barn and Lodges are more rustic and rural location. And now we're embarking on a new concept that we're very excited about called Smashing Grapes Kitchen and Wine Bar. And the concept there, is to bring coastal California cuisine and wine to the East Coast. And so we spent a lot of time last year. We did a tour out to California. I think we visited over 42 different concepts to really understand kind of what's happening out there that's not happening here from both a wine and a food perspective. And we just saw so much cool stuff that's not happening on the East Coast in this region, and we wanted to bring that back here. And so from a food perspective, we're really excited about a lot of the flavors, a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, lighter fare, lighter sauces, fresh fish, things like that, but with really clean plate presentation, a little bit smaller portion sizes, and some shareable type things. And then to pair that with just a phenomenal wine list, with over 300 bottles of wine, with our main focus being bringing the Central Valley wine coast. So you've got Napa, but then the Central Valley has now emerged over the last 10 years as being one of the most prolific grape makers of whites, so Pinot Grigios and Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blancs. And they do a lot of good reds and Cabernets. And so when you look at wine lists here on the East Coast, you don't tend to see a lot of those wines, and they're phenomenal. And so we think by pairing those two together with our incredible interior designer who does all of our decor, the experience and the ambiance of the facility that we're building, along with the flavors and the taste from the West Coast, is going to be a really cool, unique thing that nobody else is really doing right now. So we're very excited. We hope to open our first location here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then embark on another Smashing Grapes, which will be here in Gambrels in late October, early November. So we've got our plate full in the midst of a global pandemic. We're still growing and building businesses, which makes us either stupid or smart. We'll find out, I guess.
I was going to say, it's difficult to come by conversations right now where people talking about growth, talking about like what can we create now that's new and happening. Most of the conversations that I'm running into that are the most popular conversations right now is how are we surviving? Yeah. So I am interested in how, as a hospitality company, you guys are innovating and how you guys are doing things differently. So I do want to talk about that, but before we jump all the way in there, I'm curious, what's it feel like, again, knowing everything that you know about what it's like to open a new concept in the best of environments where, like we just talked about, what does it feel like right now to be opening a concept in the midst of when we're only allowed, 25% of the people in the room, unless they're outside? Right. What is that like?
It's scary. It's very scary. There are some positives. We decided that it didn't make sense. We had plans to do this conversion. The pandemic hit and we had a decision to make. Do we postpone it or do we move forward? And when we really looked at all aspects of that, postponing it and waiting for the economy to come back, and then be shut down for 4 months of construction while everything else starts taking back off, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. while things are shut down, we said, let's take advantage of that now and get through this project. We are also finding some significant savings in our construction costs because people are looking for work and they're hungry right now. And so there was a financial benefit to moving forward. There's also the risk of course, of reinvesting $1.3 million into a location when, to your point, we have a limited seating capacities and things like that. We believe strongly that when this comes back, and it will, whether it's 2 months, 5 months, 7 months, nobody really knows. Eventually, it's going to come back. We will find a vaccine. We will find therapeutics. We will find ways to manage through this. We want to position ourselves now to be able to thrive when that happens. You go through phases. Phase 1 was survival, right? And I think we worked really hard in the first month to 2 months of this to figure out just how to survive. Phase 2 was how to survive and maintain your brand standards and your quality of food and the service, because when it all happened, it was throw tables outside, get a tent outside, just do anything you can to get revenue coming in. And a lot of restaurants are still doing that, but that to me is not a recipe for success. You've got to be able to be open, but also to provide the same level of service you did prior to this in a safe environment, obviously. And so I think we were able to do that. And now kind of phase 3 for me is how do we position the company to thrive when this comes back? And that's hard to do, and it's risky to do it. And it's multifaceted. Part of it, obviously, is attention to detail and making sure that you're giving the best experience you can to the population that does come out. And right now, we know that's a limited population. It's about 50% of the people in the state of Maryland feel comfortable going to a restaurant or bar right now. Out of that 50%, half of them are only comfortable in outdoor dining settings. So as the fall creeps on, we're going to find out what's left, really, for indoor dining. That being said, we do believe that if we can provide that phenomenal experience that we always have during the toughest of times, and as it's heartbreaking to see, but a lot of small businesses are going under. A lot of restaurants are closing. You never want to see it. It's terrible for the families, the owners. But I guess from a business standpoint, there is the upside that there will be less competition when this swings back. And if you've positioned yourself well, and you've maintained and gotten through and still have a great product, when it does come back, I think you position yourself to take advantage of that and really take off and thrive. And this is anybody's guess. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But we believe that if we're able to do that, we're going to position ourselves not only to thrive with the existing units we have, but to set ourselves up for additional growth in the future years. So we're excited about that as well.
So Smashing Grapes is something you might be seeing.
We would like to grow that brand to multiple units, potentially even the Blackwall unit. I think landlords and commercial real estate is going to be in a completely different world. They've dominated and controlled the landscape for 50 years. I think they're waking up right now and realizing that it is a two-way street. We've always approached our landlord-tenant relationships as a partnership. I'm not sure all of our landlords have attempted or felt that way, but we certainly have. And moving forward, I think we're going to be able to find great locations with great leases with hopefully landlords that are appreciative of having good operators with good brands in their locations.
So reach back. I want to imagine reaching back in time a little bit. There's a 25-year-old somewhere on a line that's about to go into the field. What advice do you give them?
Don't. Be ready to swing because it's a fight every day. I wake up every morning and I literally prepare myself for, I feel like a professional boxing man. I don't know what's coming at me. I don't know where the next punch is coming from. I just know it's going to come. And you've got to be able to deal with it and duck or take it and throw a punch back. And it's a really, really hard industry. That being said, if you're passionate about it and you love it and you've gotten your foot in the door and you feel like this is for me, then follow your dream and do it. But understand that it's unlike any other business. Your hours, you're not going to see your families as much as your buddy who works at the 9 to 5 job. You're going to work evenings. You're going to work weekends. We do the majority of our volume Thursday at 5 p.m. to Sunday at 6 p.m. Right? Most people do their volume of work between Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So your schedule is going to be off of the rest of the world. You're going to sleep when they're awake. You're going to shop at a grocery store where no one's in it. And there's some cool stuff about that. There are definitely benefits, but I would encourage anybody in life to follow their dreams and what they're passionate about. However, in this industry, I would just caution that they really understand what they're getting themselves into. It takes a tremendous physical and emotional toll on you. I thrive on that. Quite frankly, I couldn't sit behind a desk 8 hours a day, although I'm tending to do that more and more, not by choice right now. But so it's certainly, it's not for everybody, but it is for some people. And if they, you can learn a tremendous amount. You can meet some incredible people. You're never gonna be bored. It's not gonna be stale, but it's gonna take a toll. It's definitely gonna take a toll.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate taking the time.
Anytime. My pleasure.
A special thanks to James King for joining us for the Rebel Aim podcast. And thank you, folks, for tuning right along. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Instagram stuff, YouTube, places that my producer is supposed to write down on a Post-it note or something and stick next to the camera so that I remember them. Doesn't matter. Find us on social media, and thanks for tuning in.